everybody, welcome back to the Pylon Show. I believe we're on episode number 21. I am joined right now by a ridiculously large amount of people, but that's because it is. I love this camera of Lambo in the center. It's amazing. We are joined by so many people. Jeff had to run. Something came up for him, but that's all right. We are going to skip all the normal opening things because it is literally the middle of the night for Lambo. So a quick introduction to everybody. And we can get right into talking about balance in WCS. First off, Lambo, what time is it where you are?
Soon 3 a.m. So yeah, doing good.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming on. Definitely wanted to finally have you on the show. A lot of Europeans stay, but you're the only one in Europe, so thank you for that. What's new with you?
Not much right now. Dealing with jet lag, as you can see. So
yeah, I figured. My whole goal was, like, I actually didn't know if TLO and Uthermal were going to be in Europe or not, but I'm like, everyone's going to be jet lagged. I can get Europeans this week. Someone's going to agree. And you guys did, so thank you very much. Speaking of which, TLO, you're still in NA, right? No, he's frozen. All right. he's got a very serious face on right now, everybody. Uthermal, though, you're on vacation right now?
No, I'm on vacation. I live here.
You live in Mexico?
Yeah.
Oh. What? Okay.
Well, half the time.
Cool. All right.
I live in the Netherlands when I have to play challengers, but otherwise I'm here.
Oh, well, that's very cool. Now we can say that all of the best non-Korean Terrans are Mexican. Thank you for coming on the show. TLO, I guess we'll hopefully get him reconnected here momentarily. And, of course, Nathanias. Great job at WCS as well. How are you doing, buddy?
Fantastic. Life is great. Artosis.
Well, thank you, everyone, for coming on. Let's just get right into talking about the balance patch. This is the big yearly patch that gets announced every year that comes up after BlizzCon. So the rest of the tournaments you guys see this year are going to be the same thing. But this is a pretty gigantic patch, and you know, I'm not even sure where we should start. Should we start on the battle cruiser? I mean, Nathanias, this is why you're here, right? So,
I mean, are you just gonna ask me to leave after we talk about it? Because this is
no, you can stay. It's okay.
Do we want to get to it at the very start of this? I don't know that I have much else to contribute here.
We can save it for a little bit then, but I would like to start with some of these Terran changes, anyways. Okay. First off, well, Uthermal, let's start with you here, talking about the Terran changes. In general, what do you think? And then we'll go over them bit by bit here.
I'm quite positive in general. I think, honestly, some of the changes, not just for Terran, but for most of them, are kind of, you know, I don't know why. But for example, the BC change, or I don't know if you guys want to start about it, but I think it's cool. I'm not saying it's going to be a great unit, but I like the direction anyway. And also, I think the Thor changes are really cool. And besides that, looking at them, they're not too huge of changes for Terran, I think. Not sure what you guys think about that.
Well, okay, so just to go over them for people listening on audio only, which is quite a few people actually. So the battle cruiser kind of got some buffs. It has a moving shot and all that. The Widow Mine now will cloak with the Drilling Claws upgrade, so not maybe the biggest thing in the whole world, but it'll kind of go back to being unseen when it slides right into the ground so quickly with that. The Cyclone armor reduced by 1. The Thor, I always get confused when they patch a Thor because there's always too many numbers because the name of the attack has numbers in it too, so I just like look at it and my brain glazes over. But the weapon speed is going from 3 to 2.5, that means it's faster, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's because I could see like a higher number being a quicker speed. What they mean is the cooldown. Okay. So not just that, but it looks like it's going to be doing a lot more damage against massive. And the AoE is going to be reduced a little bit, as well as base armor. And you were mentioning you think that this is going to be kind of a big deal?
Yeah. So obviously the intent of these changes is to make it a bit better against like the big air units like Broodlords and Tempest, things like that. And the other nerf is for mutas to be better.
Hmm.
Which are both things I think are really good. Like mutas are, they're viable right now, but it's never nice to fight against Thors with mutas, so it's good. And Brute Lords can be somewhat of a problem against Terran. And the change they get for against Tempest is more for mech, I think. They were intending for it to be with bio, which I can't really see happening that I make a 3-factory Thor with my bio against Protoss. But in general, I think those changes are good. The armor reduction can be a bit worrisome. I think something they overlooked is that it's also going to be worse against Swarmhost, with the anti-air being worse and the armor being less as well. But for the anti-Zergling and Muta, that's going to work out quite well, I think.
Okay. And TLO, are you back now?
Yeah, that's just a small internet outage, so I'm here again.
That's all right, no problem. Thank you. Thank you for showing up, by the way. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
But we just started the show talking about the Thor here and some of the changes, and it seems like some of the changes are geared towards making the Mutalisk a little bit more usable. Lambo and TLO, what are you guys thinking about these changes, and how is it going to affect that matchup?
I personally like the Thor change, just like Thermo said. I think the Widow Mines will be used a bit more, especially if the Mutas come back. They're already used against the pure Ling Bane style when you skip the Hydras, and also against Muta Ling Bane, so I also like that. But yeah, the Thor changes I think go into the right direction. Right now they're very, very strong against Ling Bane Muta, and I think Brood Lords are also a bit too strong. Like if Terran isn't perfectly prepared, they can just die to a Brood Lord timing. So yeah, I think overall positive.
Yeah, I think we all kind of miss Ling Bane Muta a bit in CVT. It used to be the most iconic kind of composition in StarCraft 2 for the longest time, and those I felt were already used against Muta styles anyway, and they just went a little bit overboard, buffing both the armor and the AoE. So it'll be fun to see Mutas again, and I'm very happy about that it comes in conjunction with the mind change. Else that would probably be ridiculous, but this way it should work out okay.
So you think the mind change is a pretty big deal?
Well, it'll help a lot, especially against the Ling Bane style. Being able to have invisible mines again is going to help out a lot. It was way too easy to play against mines. Against the pure Ling Bane style, as Lambo said, mines were still good, but as soon as you have some mutas in there or something, it would be too easy to just kill the mines all the time. You wouldn't have to, so many Zerg games have been lost at some point because you just lose your Overseer at some point or something like that, and then Zerg would need to pull back. But right now it was just too easy to just, even when you didn't have detection, you could still deal with it.
Yeah, like you would think it's not that big of a deal, but usually you have the Overseers with your ground army and hotkey, and then they fly forward and they die to the Marines. And very often that makes it so that Widow Mines just survive the fight, which I think has a bigger impact than you would think. Also, you need like Overseers with your run-bys every time, because right now if you do a run-by and there's a Widow Mine to spot, you would just kill it right after. Like those little things are actually quite important.
Yeah, and especially with Ling Bane Mutas, run-bys are strong, right?
Yeah, I didn't really think of the run-by thing actually when I was looking at that, but that's actually a great point. Yeah, I wonder if the Widow Mine change, I don't think that this really affects the other two matchups, right? Like I'm trying to, the amount that I ever see drilling clauses of Protoss players negligible, and TVT you don't see that many mines that you get that upgrade, right?
I think you'd see it versus Protoss, yeah. Especially if you're one of like the 5 people that ever played mech versus Protoss, which you would after this patch. Probably a bit more than before. It's quite nice for spreading around some of your bases. I don't know, against Zealots especially, because if the other ones survive, they always kill it right now. My 2 cents at least.
Honestly, the Drilling Claw mine drop opening in Protoss could be a bit better as well. Because right now, if you do something like that and you play Stargate, it doesn't matter anyway, because you just kill the mines after. But if they're invisible, then it could actually be annoying. You might have to make some more oracles or a faster robo or something.
But you have to get the upgrade though, right? So I'm just, I mean, I have seen it, just doesn't seem to be too popular. Do you think this could increase the popularity of it though?
Yeah, it will. Not by much probably, because it's it's still a bit of a risky opening anyway. But Yeah, you know, especially after the patch come out when everyone's trying, and you'll probably see this a lot on the ladder.
Mm-hmm. Now, okay, let's jump over to the medevac here. This is kind of like a funny couple changes. Okay, it heals things that Phoenixes pick up. That seems pretty reasonable. But this change in high capacity fuel tanks no longer increase the duration of ignite afterburners. Instead, it reduces the cooldown from 14 to 9.
Seems so strange to me, because isn't a longer duration de facto also a cooldown reduction?
Yes, that's weird. That's weird, because the cooldown on Ignite Afterburners starts as soon as you activate the ability.
Yeah.
So previously, it's like, it lasts 50% longer. You'd still only have 5 seconds of inactivity on the boost.
I've legit argued with Blizzard about this like 4 times, and they always like somehow talk their way out of it. But every time I tell again, like, if you get the upgrade now, the cooldown is really short and the boost is really long, and they want to have the boost like the same length with the cooldown short, and I'm like, you're just making it worse. But then,
if I'm not mistaken, this is clearly a nerf, right?
Yeah,
this must
be right.
The only person I have ever seen get this upgrade in a pro game in the last 2 years, I'm pretty sure, is Kelliger, and he barely used it. So I'm so confused why this would be nerfed right now.
Well, what they said was that if you, I'm not sure what the exact number is, but I think after this change, the cooldown is a little bit shorter than when you get it now. So instead of the boost being like 7 seconds and the cooldown 5, the boost is now 4, and the cooldown is 4 as well. Something like
wow.
Like, what they want is they just want you to be able to jump between bases really fast rather than boosting long. That's where they were going. But exactly what you just said, Nate, I argued with them like 4 times, and it's always ends up the same. So
I always find it really funny when there's a change like this, where it's like, well, no one used it. It's like when they did the first disruptor nerfs like last year. They're like, yeah, disruptors are a problem. And I was like, I think we saw 1 disruptor made in this GSL season, so I'm not sure that I see where you're coming from, but okay. You're just hurting M canning at this point. But there's another change just like this, and I gotta actually read this out loud for everybody. Okay. Neo Steel frame and structure armor are being combined into Neo Steel armor, which combines their upgrades. It will cost 150, 150, and take 100 seconds to research, the same as structure armor. Now, the note here, this is the best part. Neo Steel frame improvements are often requested by various Neo Steel enthusiasts in the community. This change aims to make it more attractive by combining it with an existing structure upgrade. Who are these Neo Steel enthusiasts in the community?
I couldn't possibly guess. Whoever researches that upgrade.
Good shit.
I must admit, I did bring that up to Blizzard previous times as well, because I always thought, that upgrade is just so useless. May as well slap it on something else. I'm excited to see the bunkers, because they look different,
skin,
right?
Yeah, it's like a skin. Honestly, Blizzard should just remove the upgrade and sell the skin for Neo.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Because that's the real way to get out of this problem. We all just like how that bunker looks.
Just pay in the match. You can pay 50 cents to make your bunkers look different
per game.
I don't think anyone has an opinion on this other than it's really silly.
There are, like 2 scenarios that you could ever use it, but that's about it that I could think of.
Could you enlighten us with those 2 scenarios?
Okay. So, scenario 1 is you're just defending any bullshit all in. I mean, you would never get it. You'd never get it in time. But the other scenario is the situation where you're running 100 Banelinks towards you, and you have your siege set up, and it's like crazy late game, and then you're a little bit less vulnerable to Banelinks because you can shove more of your Marines into bunkers. That's it. That's all I got.
Okay.
I've just, there you go.
Well, you do play NA ladder, so I'm going to trust you on these.
When you don't want to build siege tanks, you got to put your Marines somewhere.
All right. Okay, so I mean, I'm happy for the Neo Steel enthusiasts in the community that they are finally getting the love that they so deserve and they've waited so long for. So congratulations to them. And I mean, I guess there's a possibility we'll see a NeoSteel frame bunker in a pro tournament. I did see one. I think it was in Wings of Liberty one time.
Illusion.
I think the guy
Illusion had a build with it.
Did he?
Yeah,
he also upgraded +1 in someone's natural with an eBay block once. So I don't know if that really counts. Anything Illusion does. Okay, on to another one that's like kind of a funny upgrade, a very small tweak. Hyperflight rotors, the Banshee speed upgrade, is just being reduced by 50 minerals and 50 gas from 200 to 150 150.
You know, I guess it's nice. You know, it's another one of those upgrades that we just rarely ever see. And reducing costs of upgrades like that has been a thing that Blizzard has been doing many times now. I guess it's okay. You know, I don't think we're going to see like crazy imbalanced Hyperflight rotor upgrade rushes, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just one of those like small changes that I'm totally on board with. I'm actually always happy when they do small changes like that, because I feel like they could do that a bit more. Just tweak numbers a tiny bit to make things more viable, but I don't think it's going to really matter.
Yeah, the problem with this upgrade is generally that it just takes way too long to make. So it's like if you go speed Banshee against Zerg, they will literally have, you know, their Spire halfway done if they scouted it, and like it's not that great. But the thing is, that's what we told Blizzard as well. But they think if you can build the upgrade too fast, it can actually get really awkward, because it can be hard for Zerg to scout that they're actually going for a speed Banshee. So they just wanted to do a cost nerf, but basically all of us agreed it's not really cost officer agreed it's not really a huge change, but you know, I'll take it. I'd rather have it be cheaper than not.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, now sorry guys, we have to go over every single change in the balance notes. The NeoSteel frame enthusiasts would be very upset with us if we didn't mention that. So we've got to nail everything. But this one's actually kind of a bigger one. The Raven, they finally removed the anti-armor missile damage all the way down to 0. And now it reduces the Protoss shield armor as well, which makes sense. I'm surprised it wasn't doing that before. But I think everyone wanted this, right? Getting rid of the damage on anti-armor missile?
Well, from the pro Terrans, not really. Like, personally, I don't have a strong opinion on this, because I don't use it a lot. I don't think, like, if I make a Raven, I will, but it's not like it's really impactful in my games. But the main reason for this change is actually TVT. That if you play a late game and there's a lot of Ravens, you can just blow up with still with the 15 damage. But the other pro Terrans argue that it doesn't really happen that much. You don't get late game Raven TVTs anymore. So I think they were against it mostly.
Well, I mean, when it was doing 40 damage before, that was, I would say, the third worst period in StarCraft 2's history. Those hour-long TVZs I was casting at GSL every night were not. It was like, oh look, he turned around with the tank push. We're going to anti-armor missile. This sucks.
Yeah. So what's the second worst one? Was that Plinkstalker or Sentry, or because we all know what the worst one was, but.
Yeah, we all know the worst one, but I would say it was actually just the Broodlord Infestor at the very end of Wings Liberty.
Oh, the worst one was Swarmhost in your eyes, then.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You don't think so?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, I guess.
Swarmhost are way worse.
I kind of try to forget about that time of StarCraft 2, actually.
Happy against Fire.
Okay, the Cyclone 1 reduced armor, what are you thinking about this one, especially in TBT? It seems like that's what it's. Yeah. What are our Terrans thinking about this? Euthermal and Nathanias, you guys are the Terrans, by the way.
Okay.
I guess.
I know there's some confusion with Euthermal, but there shouldn't be any for you, Nathanias.
Maybe. All right, you Schlappy, speak first. You're the authority.
Yeah, so I feel like this is a bit more of a change geared towards lower level Terrans, because it's mostly a change for TVT, but like on the high level, you don't really die to Cyclones anymore. Like, you need to like really fuck up or just be really greedy to lose to the Cyclones. So apparently, Blizzard thought it was an issue for TVT, but yeah, it's really not. Like, if in my game someone makes too many Cyclones, I feel like I already win the game because they're just too expensive and not that good.
Mhm.
So for me, it just feels like they're nerfing them in other matchups, and it's not like they're really great in other matchups. So for me, this is kind of a weird change.
Okay.
It's not the most common build in CVT, but sometimes you face people that make a lot of Cyclones still, and I think that's actually kind of a big deal because Queens will be so much better against Cyclones now. For Queens, one almost really big deal, right? They lose 1/4 of their damage. So that's kind of big, and Lynx will be a little bit better. So I guess it becomes a bit easier for Zerg not to have to be worried as much about Cyclone builds, even if they're not as common. You know, it makes you a little bit happier.
Like I feel like even without the armor, I think you still die to like the double factory builds, if that's what you're talking about. If you don't have like a Roach Warren, like those are with a lot of Cyclones and usually even with like +1 and shit.
Yeah, that's true. But I think it could help you survive a little bit longer until maybe you have the Roaches or the Ravagers. You know, if the initial push where it's not so many Cyclones.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not a big deal, but it definitely will help a little bit.
Yeah, I think that when you deal, I guess like on ladder, you still play against a lot of people that will do like Reaper Cheese and stuff. Would be like a little tougher to hold, maybe, but also easier to defend if you're just using Marines or SCVs. Cyclones will kill each other faster too, so that's always fun to watch.
Oh yeah, they will actually.
Yeah, when we watch that beautiful box war, it'll be even more ugly than ever.
Always love that. And that brings us to the battlecruiser to really talk about that a little bit. So the battlecruiser change is pretty massive. Remove the random delay shots between both ATS and ATA laser batteries. The ATA, is that the anti-air one?
It must be.
Yeah. That's the damage is reduced from 6 to 5. Yamato cannon damage reduced from 300 to 240, and now it moves while shooting. That's the patch. Nathanias, everything I know about this already are clips from your stream on Reddit, so I'd love for you to say some words about the battlecruiser.
It's kind of weird. I've played a good number of games with this. Just for reference, if anyone's not played the test map, it's currently bugged. The AI of it will not shoot anything in the air if there is anything on the ground by it. So
there's a clip on Reddit of Nathanias losing a battlecruiser to a Viking.
One
it's
Viking.
Funny.
Because even if you hold A and you just spam left click, it will like shoot 1 out of every 30 shots at the air unit. So there's that. It feels really good. It feels amazing. I don't know that it's like the end all be all. People like, would it be too strong to get fast? I was trying to rush a battlecruiser really quickly. A, your opponent has time to scout it. B, half the games I play, the guys got like, they scout it, right? Because I'm just rushing it. And then they've got like, a decent number of stalkers or whatever. And it does feel really good to harass with and poke though. And that clip is so great. I'm so glad you're showing that. That is, but it is really good. Like if you can just get it over there early enough, it's a really fun unit to micro. It feels good to play around with. Yamato's good. Teleport's nice. Do not try to kill anything air with it, though. It's the Yamato change. It doesn't one-shot. It no longer one-shots the Void Ray. And it also takes 3 to kill another BC. So battlecruisers are officially the worst unit in the game at killing other battlecruisers.
Wow.
That 5 damage per hit, it is not... You don't kill anything air with it. It's really fun to micro, though. Like, it feels like it's the unit that it should have been. But it's kind of buggy right now, so I can't say that like it's the most intuitive unit right now either.
I think the changes are pretty great. To be honest, before if you chase like a stalker with a battlecruiser, it would take you like a year to kill it just because it kind of has to decelerate and shoot, right? And the only purpose of a PC was just to Yamato a bunch of times and teleport away. But now they're actually going more towards a unit that can actually fight normally, which is really good. And of course, I can't tell about the stats, but I think the direction of where they're going with it is really good.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not like an all kill everything though. I'm glad that you do need support units for it, and I can confirm the new Tempest is pretty good against it as well.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I'm pretty happy they did the damage change because I think the Battlecruiser has about 18% more DPS now, or something like that, after the random change.
Yeah, it feels a lot better shooting ground units.
So I'm pretty happy they removed the damage from reduced damage from 6 to 5. So Corruptors are probably still going to be really, really good against battlecruisers, maybe even a little bit better now. Because before, because now then the battlecruisers can move. If you can just fly away from the Corruptors will clump up a lot. Then you get hit by Ravens. I think it's good that they made especially Corruptors a little bit better against them. But it seems like it's, I don't think it's going to be crazy imbalanced or anything, but fun to see battlecruisers maybe.
If I could say one more thing on it, if you guys ever played that Heart of the Swarm mission where you got to like take over the Scourge nest to stop the giant battlecruiser pushing, that's kind of how it works. You basically, because it's not with the movement speed that it has and the movement speed buff to like Tempest, teleporting aggressively other than in like some sort of cheese is kind of like off the table. It doesn't work. It's not something that you're going to see a lot of unless you like do some crazy switch and they don't scout it. But with the way that this shoot while move works, it's like you fly it into their base, you're guaranteed almost to kill a few workers, like unless it's like a battery or two or something, and you're just gonna teleport back. And it's mostly like the teleport is your eject button. Because you can't run away from anything like Tempest now, and obviously Corruptors are still really good versus them because they don't do any damage to air. Like that 5 it does not hit it all, so it's gonna be, you gotta kind of babysit them with a big army, or the teleport is just to get back home.
I have one question about it. When you target, for example, a building or something that has a lot of hit points, when you target it and then move command, will they stay on that target or will they just
No, they don't keep a target. That's the AI on it is a bit wonky because if anything, like if a stalker can shoot it, then the stalker should also be in range because they have the same range, and it'll just like shoot at random shit while it's flying around too. I've had a few things like that, but it doesn't work like a carrier. Like you can't like attack something and then keep moving and it will keep shooting the same thing while it's in range. That's it doesn't stick. So
that sounds like it's probably just very buggy right now, because if you can't target things with a unit, like I've played a lot of different RTS games in my life, and every time I've hit one that has units that you can't target and they just shoot random shit, I'm like, oh, I'm going to delete this one off my PC. This is no good. But do you guys think that these changes will have us seeing at the top level more battlecruisers? Like, are you guys going to actually run into battlecruisers now? Is this a real? Because like before, right? There was this tiny period where Nate and TY were making battlecruisers, and it seemed like it was doing all right. And then like I saw Gumiho make battlecruisers against a Zerg a few times, but it's few and far between. And of course, Mario to win Asia games, but other than that, we've seen so few BCs actually in pro play. Does this change that at all?
I think versus Zerg, it shouldn't change too much, especially because of the anti-air nerf. I'm not sure if they can maybe use battlecruisers and combine them with Ravens somehow to use them as an ultimate late game army, but I think against Zerg, I won't see too many more battlecruisers than we already do.
Yeah. And okay, so I know that the battlecruiser was maybe a little bit underpowered because we don't really get to see it, but what about this idea of shooting while moving? Because I was pretty skeptical when the Phoenix was made, right? Because if you can just like right click, it's like it's not doing anything. A huge part of the skill in StarCraft is deciding when and how to move your units and have them shoot and things like that, whereas something like this is a set it and forget it type thing. What do you guys think about maybe not necessarily how strong the battlecruiser is, but this idea of buffing something in this way?
I don't love it.
Yeah. I think it's very scary for like a super strong unit to have this ability, because you're going into the direction of making a unit another carrier, where they can just kind of move around and kill stuff while moving. And I think that's very scary.
They kind of love that idea about the cinematic, how the battlecruiser has all these small shots and it looks kind of epic. But as a player, I'd prefer if the battlecruiser would be more like the Brood War battlecruiser, that it had a small, like an attack, a single attack that's strong, and then make the battlecruiser really microable, that you can like move and shoot, but actually do it yourself. That would be cool. If it would maybe even have like a turret, kind of like the new Colossus is going to be, that you can target fire, but you can keep moving in another direction. I think that would be something that as a player I'd prefer.
Oh, okay, yeah.
but like this is kind of boring, right? You just move command and things happen.
I think it's pretty cool, to be honest. It's like as you said, like if it becomes another carrier, then it's terrible, right? Because no one wants that. The thing is, the battlecruiser is it's weak against, for example, like Zerg spellcasters. So that's why I don't think it will ever be like, massed. But if it actually becomes a unit where you can have a few with your army and they can tank really well and they can actually combat, I think it's actually pretty good. And of course, the cinematic thing you just said, like, it really fits with the battlecruiser. I think, like, I actually think it's super cool as well. Like, balance aside.
When you think of a battlecruiser, you think of a giant ship flying around and blowing shit up as it moves. Yeah. It actually battles while cruising now. It just makes sense.
Damn. That's really good, actually. It does, in fact, battle while cruising now. All right. So the Terran changes overall. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Small thumbs up for me.
Small thumbs up. The Zerg players, small thumbs up? Thumbs up? Thumbs up? All right. Okay. And I guess that this is all considered overall a buff to Terran, right?
Yeah, I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's go into Zerg. I just kind of want to keep track overall and see what the overall plan is. Okay, so going into Zerg now, I'm just going to read what the burrow changes and then the Zergling Hydralisk change, because they kind of it's related. So basically, burrow unburrow are going to be separated into two hotkeys, and if you use tabbing as part of your play, basically it's sorting it, so it's much easier to just grab your burrowed units or your unburrowed units, or just do unburrow or burrow. Whereas before it would just like mass it all up down. Everyone's seen that with burrowed roaches fucking up and that type of thing. Okay, so the actual change to Zergling and Hydralisk, and why I mentioned the burrow unburrow, the unburrow speed specifically of Zergling and Hydralisk go from 0.71 to 0.36, so that's like twice as quickly that it's going to unburrow, and the unburrow random delay reduced from 0.36 to 0.08, and they say the increase of unburrow speed should allow for more tactical and sneaky Zerg plays, for example, using Hydralisks to catch War Prisms or Medevacs unaware as they fly towards a mineral line, or using Zerglings to ambush reinforcements as they walk across the map. What are you guys thinking about this kind of interesting change with the unburrow mechanic?
I like it a lot. Yeah, I actually didn't know the random delay was that big. That explains why it was even more terrible than it was before. Because if you hit the max delay before, right, it would take over a second for a unit to unburrow. But not just that, it would also mean units like stagger. So we would have like links unburrowing, and some would burrow first and get just target fired. That explains a lot that I didn't know before. But I think it's good. Right now burrow is never used in this way. And I think it's a really cool, unique play that people will enjoy a lot watching the game, seeing moves like that. And again, I don't think it's going to be super OP, but it rewards really high-level play. Because if you burrow your Hydras and you don't pay attention, that's much worse than if they would just have been at the edge. So it's a risk-reward thing, right? You get rewarded for paying attention and punished if you don't. So I think that's a good change.
Lambo?
Yeah, I also think it's just a good change. I think, first of all, the splitting of the hotkeys for burrow and unburrow is really nice. You don't have to control click the burrowed units anymore. It just makes it a bit easier to control. And I can't wait to see Dario sniping some War Prisms with burrowed units.
Normally, I'm not really a fan of these surprise plays, but in this case, I think it's pretty cool because, as Dario said, it's really risk reward. Like if someone wants to burrow 8 Hydras in his main to snipe my Doom Job, but I don't drop them, well, I don't mind, right? It's not that explosive. Like, I think this actually makes for like cool strategic plays. Why I said that at the start is because I really don't like things like burrow baitings, for example, because it's like most of the time it doesn't work, but sometimes you lose 30 Marines to something you can't even see. But in this case, I actually think it makes for pretty cool strategic play, so I like this one.
Yeah, the Unburrow Zergling sounds a lot cooler than the Baneling landmines, right? there's some sort of play there. When you guys see these changes to the Unburrow, like as Zerg players, are you guys excited to actually integrate this into your play? Because I've watched plenty of both your games, and I don't see Hydralisks unburrowing to catch things, and I don't see Zerglings setting traps with burrow either. So is it actually something that you guys think that you'll end up using? Would you be surprised if you end up using it?
I think like about the Zergling unburrow thing to catch units, I'm not sure if it's just better to run Zerglings in to catch reinforcements. That's just more simple and better. But yeah, I don't know. The Unburrow with the Hydralisk, I could see myself sniping a War Prism here and there, but I also don't think I will be using that too much. Although I really hate War Prisms, so having that option is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the links I'm not so sure either. It's kind of cute. You know, maybe we will have some really rare occasions where that works out somehow, but I kind of doubt that's going to be played a lot. I do wonder if, you know, with the burrow speed, it's quite a bit faster, right? And we've all seen Ultralisks getting stuck behind Hydras. So I wonder if that's something you could do, you know, if you're in that situation where like just go for your Hydras, let your Ultras through and unburrow.
I like it.
Maybe that'll be helpful. But maybe that's going to be less of a big deal because they're buffing the Ultralisk speed of creep if you get the upgrade. But that's the one thing I could think of. But Hydra burrow unburrow is cool. Links, questionable if that'll ever get any play.
I think it could help a bit with link runbys against Terran, because you can burrow links a bit less obvious when the Terran comes back.
No, but
the burrow speed is the same though.
The burrow speed is the same. It's just
yeah. Okay. All right. So it's kind of cool, and we'll see, I guess, on that. A nerf to the Hydralisk. Now, health decreased from 90 to 85. I'm sure everyone must have some thoughts about this one. The Hydralisk being such a key unit right now in all the Zerg matchups. I'll start. I'm a Protoss player. Thank God. Oh my God. I'm so sick of dying to Hydralisk. What do you guys think?
Plus 3 Liberators, baby. One tap.
Yeah, I don't think it changes too much in the TVZ matchup because the Hydras, they kind of just die anyways when the Marines actually get in contact with them. I think it's mainly a nerf for ZVP and a bit in ZVZ too. I think against Protoss, especially if you play Roach Hydra or any kind of Hydra timings, they're a lot worse. Anywhere where the Storm just hits the Hydras, all of the units just take like one last shot to kill them. It's a very big deal. But yeah, I think it's good. I think it's kind of getting boring to see Hydras just being messed with pretty much every single style. So we'll see how it plays out, but I think it's okay.
I can agree with that.
To be honest, I'd much rather see a small damage reduction for the Hydra, because I feel once a Hydra is touched, it dies so quickly anyway. And it punishes, for example, it makes micro against Storm even harder. You know, when you Storm Hydras, they die so fast, but even 5 hit points less is going to be an issue. So I'd much rather see a 10% decrease in the cooldown, or like increase in the cooldown of between them firing, so slower attack speed. But you know, any nerf to the Hydra is probably a good nerf, but I would prefer if they reduce the damage a bit.
Yeah, I'm with Dario on this one, because honestly, I love to see a Hydra nerf just because it gets kind of boring to see them every game in 2 matchups, or I know not always in ZVP. But this 5 damage or 5 HP nerf actually makes them die 1 shot faster against a lot of units. Like you say it's not important for ZVP, but I'm pretty sure they get 2 shots of siege tanks now instead of 3. And they also die 1 shot faster to both Adepts and Oracles. So I think it could actually be like they might even be more of a glass cannon now. You know, not really sure that's the direction where they wanted to go. So maybe a DPS nerf would be better. But in general, Hydra nerf is very welcome, I think.
it makes it even more binary, right? If you can actually touch the Hydras die even quicker. But if you don't touch them, you lose anyway, right? So it makes winning against Hydras, it makes you win even harder when you win against them and lose just as much before. So, yeah.
So it's okay. I see what you mean. So it's almost like all the counters are harder even now. It's like if the Hydras kill you, they super kill you as always, and if you actually battle against them and kill them, you're really going to wipe them out.
Yeah. That's what I think.
So, but you also said that any nerf to Hydras is a good nerf. Like, is this? Are you? Well, I mean, you're a Zerg player, so you're not happy with it being a pro gamer, but is this? Yeah,
it's reasonable to nerf the Hydra. Let's just put it that way. Even from balance aside, but also if you think about Thor, nerf makes Mutas more viable. And then if you still have the Linkbane Hydra style, but also the Muta style, that can become really disgusting quickly, because then Terran makes siege tanks against Hydras because they think it's going to be Hydras, but it's Mutas, and suddenly Mutas is really strong, and those aren't as good. I think in combination with that especially, it's important that the Hydra gets nerfed a bit.
For specifically ZVT, because of, like you said, the Thor is nerfed against the Hydras, it seems like they want Mutas to be used more in ZVT and Hydras to be used less. Do you guys think that the combination of these changes is going to lead you into doing that?
Yeah, probably. I will definitely try out some Muta play. I think the Thor was a big problem with that.
Yeah. And also the Ultralisk becoming better. If you're going to come to because Ultras are really good after you follow them up after Mutas, because the Mutas can deal with Liberators and all that and kill Medivacs. So I definitely think it could be viable.
I do think that Mutas are also very map dependent. Like if it's a small map, you're still not going to play Mutas probably.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, speaking about the Ultra, since you brought it up, it gets a new upgrade, Anabolic Synthesis, 150 minerals, 150 gas, 79-second research time, and it gets a 10% speed increase off creep, which looks pretty damn significant if you look at the little video that they actually posted next to this. This thing is a lot faster now.
They're quick.
Yeah. Have you played against it all yet, Nate?
Someone did a 2-base Ultra Rush just to get them out. It was weird going against my one battle cruiser. They move really fast. That's all. It's weird. They move weirdly. I guess it works. It's a pretty significant speed buff. Yeah.
Yeah. They say the speed off creep is going to be 4.55, and I think Stimmed Bio has a speed of 4.72. So the gap between that is pretty small then, right? Making much. It also means Ultralisk can actually run away from Bio, which is kind of a big deal. If you're losing a fight, you can actually move away even off creep. I think it's a pretty big change in CVT. CVP, maybe if you get in those scenarios where Protoss throws away all the Immortals, or if it's a really big map, and you just kind of run around the Protoss and never take a fight, it's going to help, but the CVT, it'll be big. CVP, it's probably not going to matter too much.
I think the biggest thing for CVT is that they can run away from the bio. Because I feel like if you push in with Ultras into a Terran and you either win or lose anyway, like I don't think the 10% speed matters much. But I think it's nice that you can run away from bio, because sometimes you get in the situation where the Terran has, like, let's say 12 Marauders and you have a few Ultras, like the Marauders will actually just kill the Ultras if you can run away from them. So I think that's really nice. And actually for ZVP, I've always been a really big fan of Ultralisk play, but sadly they have this unit that does 50 damage to armor.
Yeah, I'm not too big of a fan of the Ultra and ZVP, and I don't think that will change much. And against Terran, I think it's just very nice, and I don't think it's actually as super big as it sounds on first sight, because it takes 80 seconds, so it's a long upgrade. You will always get it after the armor upgrade. And by that time, sometimes the Terran already transitioned. Ultras are kind of a early late game unit in TVZ where you want to have some tempo plays, take out some planetaries, that kind of stuff, and maybe in that case you have some extra time to trade efficiently with them, which I think is just nice.
Okay. All right, jump into the Infestor. Infested Terran cast range from 7 to 8.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of all the times I see Infested Terrans. Normally when I see Infested Terrans, it's like because they don't have energy for a fungal and they're about to die and then they die. But I don't know, maybe you guys... Huh?
Against carriers, you sometimes make...
Occasionally.
But like defensively, but you wouldn't like throw them on top of the Protoss army. You would put them next to your spores, right?
You would think so.
Yeah. I don't know what that... I really don't like... I was told they're doing that to make Infested Terran harass a little bit stronger. But I'm not sure that would work out.
Yeah, Lambo, are you going to use more Infested Terrans now?
No, because I hate late game ZVP, but I think Stefano is going to be happy about the change.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, if he ever hits a non-Zerg player, he will be.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, it is what it is. It's one of those kind of... There's a lot of funny little tiny changes in here. We're like, oh, the infest... Oh, no. Okay, well, we'll see if that gets used. I'm not so sure about that one. But what I'm pretty sure about, I like this next change. Nidus Network, Nidus Worm. So the Nidus Network is going to be a little bit more expensive, 50 minerals, 50 gas more expensive, from 150, 200 to 200, 250. But the exit is going to go down from 100, 100 to 50, 50. So it's actually the same cost for the first one, and then every additional exit you make is cheaper. And instead of being invincible now, it's going to have 6 armor. So it can be killed, but obviously a very high armor. I think it's hilarious. It's like the funniest thing I've ever seen in my whole life, the video that they show you this on, because it shows one invincible one popping up and being killed immediately, then it shows 2 popping up. I'm like, what are we doing here? Is this a real game scenario at all? But this seems like it's a very interesting change in my opinion. What do you guys think?
Have you guys been able to play with it at all?
I don't think these guys are playing that.
Okay. Okay. So I will say I got one pretty long game against someone that used this, and it is pretty easy to kill if you have your army in your base now. So like the whole you have a guy like tries to run one unit in and you have just a couple of not basically workers. I guess Marines are kind of bad against them, but if you're opening up with anything else, like a decent sized force will kill them. But you can select them now while you're building them. So you can kind of rally them out before the worm pops if that's like something that you want to do. The games that I play, people build like a few of them. They use them for like moving around like swarm hosts and hydras. I guess it's like you have to be more aware position wise. I don't play Zergs, just going against it. Another important thing though, even though it has 6 armor, so like workers do half the damage to it. If you do surround it with your workers, the fact that you can target it before it finishes building, you can still kind of kill it with workers depending on if you only have a handful of units, because if the workers are already attacking it while it's unburrowing, they will immediately do their full 5 damage. And if you have like a full surround, in a desperate situation, they are really terrible to just build right in your face. Yeah, that's about it.
So when does it switch over to regular armor?
The moment it bursts out.
The moment it bursts out. Okay,
yeah.
So it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
It seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't this make Nidus all-ins a lot worse, but Nidus macro play better?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the Nidus all-in I don't think will be seen at all anymore, honestly. Like just even the costing increase of the initial Nidus, all those Nidus builds are super tight.
Yeah.
So having 50-50 more initially is quite big, and then just it being attacked. Like if there's a single tank or any unit that deals a lot of damage, that's just over. But yeah, I think it's nice probably for, you will see it sometimes in late game. I think TVZ and PVZ, late game harassment might be nice, but I think it will only work when there's a lot of stuff happening already and you play like a harassment focused style. So looking forward to trying that out a bit. But
yeah, well, the harassment focus style is something that everyone. It's like if you've ever read a Twitch chat, especially early on, they're like, "Why does he make Niduses everywhere?" It seems like that might be something that can be done at this point, but is it a good thing to remove an all-in from Zerg?
I think it's okay in that case because the Nidus all-in, I think, just makes really ugly games. Because a lot of times it is just a build order win if it works, and if it doesn't work, it just loses. It's not really an all-in where you can talk about how amazingly it was executed, and that's why the all-in was strong. So I'm okay with that, but it would be nice if Zerg had a little bit more early game threat, because we don't have drop anymore and we don't have Nidus anymore. So the question is, can Protoss and Terran just now go crazy with macro? Because they don't have to worry about that threat, right? Any early attack with Ravagers or so would be shut down by a Banshee. But Banshee at least was a bit scared of Nidus. If you go Banshee in 3CC. But now I wonder, what do I do against Hellion, Banshee, super greedy play? Like, there's no... Terran doesn't have to really worry about anything, right?
Yeah. And even, like, what was that tournament last year? Oh, yeah, Katowice, right? Where Rogue is just like, hey, what's up? Here's a Nidus in your natural, right? I don't know. I feel like you have to have a certain number of all-ins to keep people honest. Yeah. And I'm just wondering where the Zerg all-ins are, because at this point, are we just down to Baneling buffs and bad Ravager builds? Like, you guys have some other all-ins? Because I feel like that's all I can think of.
I think all-ins is pretty great, but honestly, I don't think there was a more lame way to lose than to waste Nidus or something. Like, it's you know, it doesn't happen that often if you're good at scouting, but the amount of times I just saw someone throw a Nidus on the factory and the guy only has 6 Hellions and the game is over, or even that Nidus against Protoss, like, I think those games are always really lame. Even the Nidus against Zerg, if you don't see it or don't have the Banelings ready, like, it's kind of shitty gameplay, I think. But the Nidus itself was a really cool unit. Like, we used it at a boudoir, for example, or like late game usage where you can put Niduses to do harassment, things like that. I think that's super cool. So I like the change in general.
Yeah.
On big maps, it could actually be really good to spread creep, as creative as it sounds, but
I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I like the Nidus change. I just worry about Zerg's, the amount of nerfs we've seen to their all-ins that's just been a recent trend this entire year, it seems. Overall, the Zerg balance patch, are you guys liking it, disliking it?
Yeah, I think it's all right.
Yeah, I would say, you know, it's not groundbreaking, but it's good. They're going into the right direction with everything, I believe.
Yeah.
I would say would do more to the Infestor. The Infestor is clunky.
It's an extra range scenario.
Yeah, you know, I guess I can like shoot over like really crazy big cliffs now, and then.
Who needs Stormhost when you can launch infested Terrans into there?
Well, you'll be building infestors to deal with all the battle cruisers, right?
So, thumbs up or thumbs down on the Zerg changes? Thumbs up? Somewhat sideways?
Yeah.
Okay. And overall, was this a nerf or a buff to Zerg? Because it seems like the Nidus got a slight all-in nerf, but maybe will be really good late game. You have this weird burrow thing that could be useful, but then the Hydralisks are weaker.
Yeah,
I would
think
say
it's
pretty. Yeah, it's a very slight nerf.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of feel that way as well. Well, I mean, you Zergs win every WCS tournament. So it should definitely be nerfed, I think.
I mean, you kind of have to look at it from all the race perspective, right? Because if you just look at the Zerg one, it looks a bit sad. But if you look at the Terran, what makes you guys better at the same time. So
I'm going to bring it all together like that at the end. You see, that's why we're getting a thumbs up, thumbs down.
You're spoiling it.
Too clever. All right, into Protoss. The first change is on the Nexus and Recall. The Recall cooldown. They're renaming them, of course. We love to rename abilities. But basically the Nexus Recall now, the cooldown is reduced from 130 to 85, but the radius goes from 6.5 to 2.5. There are thoughts on this. Much more often, but much smaller.
I think it's really cool, actually.
Yeah.
Like the radius is honestly bigger than it sounds. Like some of the players tested it, and they said you can still recall like 20 units or something like that.
Wow.
But at least it's not as ridiculous as before. Like if you actually have a Doom Drop in your base, or from either Zerg or Terran, you can't just recall everything. And also something I really like is that it doesn't save a Protoss when they fuck up really hard. Like sometimes you can get your entire army cornered and you just made a huge blunder, and then you can still save everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's really nice that is gone. And I think with the cooldown being shorter, they can actually make some like strategic plays now. Because right now the recall is literally just like, I fucked up.
Yeah.
And with this cooldown and with the shorter radius, I feel like they could actually make some more plays.
When they first announced Recall coming out, I actually thought it would be more like what I think it will be now, where Protoss is, committing kind of heavily, and then it's like, okay, I'm out of here, peace out. And we see that a little bit, right? Like someone will get a prism stuck or something in a PvP and then recall it out, or even occasionally like a probe, they'll be like, oh, the Reaper will get this, I'll just recall it. And so, I mean, it actually feels like a buff to me, this. Would you guys agree?
Cool. I don't know. I've seen it good few times. Just you can just use it more. If it's making Protoss players like think about what they're doing, then I like it. So
yeah. So maybe it's actually a nerf, is because you're making people think before they.
We had the conversation about controllers kind of aiming for you, and I'm like, well, the old recall is so big, it's hard to miss your aim, so now you got to aim a little, kind of like a little micro game.
It's kind of the old recall that is going. Well, the current recall is almost like an idiot button, like F2, right? So this will force Protoss players to be better. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay. Moving on to the Sentry. The hallucination cost reduced from 175, and Guardian Shield radius increased from 4 to 4.5.
So the hallucination energy cost reduced, I think that's mainly for PvPs, right? Which I think is fine. Doesn't really matter for ZVP too much. And I think the Guardian Shield radius, the way they explain it was, it actually makes it so that the Guardian Shield covers Zealots and fights in ZVP, or also other matchups, which I don't really think it matters too much against Zerg, much more against Terran. So maybe Utherm has some thoughts on that.
That was what most people thought. Like they really wanted it to be a buff against Zerg, but as someone said in the balance feedback, Bailings don't really care. And in general, it doesn't matter that much against Zerg, I think. But against Terran, it's a pretty big deal, because Guardian Shield is actually insane against Terran. Like if you fight with, for example, Cyclones, or like Cyclones are the worst one. They do 1 damage, and then Marines and Marauders, they're all quite bad under Guardian Shield, especially Marines. And it's just a buff with Guardian Shield, though it's already really strong. And against Zerg, as Lambo said, it's no big deal. So I feel like they're missing the mark a bit on that one.
Yeah, and I guess it's kind of a beautiful thing, in my opinion, when you get like a really top-end Protoss that actually can control his army in such a way that his Guardian Shields are doing what they're supposed to do. But most of the time, you just see him attack move, and like a bunch of Zealots are in front of the Guardian Shield. It's not really doing that much. Kind of interesting, but definitely a big buff there to the Sentry. High Templar, though, definitely getting a little bit of a nerf. The feedback damage reduced from 1 point per energy to 0.5 points of hit points per energy. So it's doing half of the damage of mana that it steals from you.
Yeah, that's...
You guys have to be happy.
It's kind of nice because it makes Vipers a little bit more viable. Right now, Vipers always feel horrible because you spend so much money on them. It's 100, 200, and then it's just one click. and you lose 4 of them, or like it's too easy for.
Well, we do 4 clicks for 4 of them. But.
Yeah, well, but you have rapid fire, so
Yeah.
Okay, fair.
Personally, this is my favorite change out of all of them. I think just having this 2 supply unit where you can kill with 1 click, and it doesn't even cost that much energy, is insane. Even like now, also one thing that changes is if you have infestors just idling, usually very often they get full energy, and then if you Nurl in late game, they can still feed back and kill them because they would still have 100 energy. So that also changes. I think that's just very nice that this 2 supply unit can completely counter the Zerg units, especially because it's usually cloaked, so we can't really see where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's still really strong. Like if you get your spellcaster's feedback, that's pretty big punishment just in itself anyway. So I don't think pros would be like, oh no, I shouldn't feedback those Vipers. It's still a very strong play anyway.
Yep.
And I think it's just good. Feedback was a bit stupid.
Yeah. To be honest, feedback was always a bit bizarre. It's like 50 energy, instantly kill whatever spellcaster. It's pretty sick. And
imagine if Brood War Templar would have had feedback rather than the Dark Archon.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be pretty wild. It feels like they just kind of imported it and put it on the High Templar and then just kind of left it there for too long. I definitely agree with you guys. It was way too strong, and this is a really good change. It just seems smart, too. It's like, okay, well, maybe if you have a full energy dude, you're still going to lose it, but...
feels like one of the bigger ones. Feels like one of the bigger changes in this patch.
Yeah. And it's really good for drop play as well. Because honestly, for Zerg, it's like you're not going to lose your infestors or Vipers, but like having a 0 energy Viper is still, it's rather annoying. But for drop play, every Terran has had like 40 supply die to High Templar just standing there, and now that's not going to happen, which is great.
And
also,
sending Banshees. Raven Banshees as well, if you ever want to harass with those.
Yeah.
So very good change there. Nice nerf. The robotics facility cost reduced from 200-100 to 150-100. What do you guys think about this? You guys ready for some for Haas winning a WCS next year?
I was about to start crying thinking that double Robo.
It's coming for sure. That is a lot cheaper if you want to get 2 robos. Was this something needed?
I think it was a bit necessary, but they felt like getting up a double robo. Like if you play against Zerg, there's a lot of roaches.
Yeah,
the double robo. I think that's the main purpose. But yeah, for most of us, it seemed a bit unnecessary. But they liked it. So.
They're really tired of people opening Stargate, man. They're doing everything they can now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Give you a discount.
I don't get it because it says in here that currently their cost and position in the Protoss tech tree makes it tricky to afford 2 of them early on, which is an issue since the 4 units it can produce are all very important to Protoss mid-game strategies. And yeah, like for 2 of them early on, first off, against Terran, you don't do that. Against Protoss, you don't do that. So it has to be against Zerg. And I've always felt in PvZ, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Lambo and TLO, but if they're going for roaches, it's not the 50 minerals, it's just whether or not you decided to build 2 robos.
Yeah.
I think it completely misses the point of, like, I think they wanted to make it so that robo play comes more into the early game of PvZ instead of just Stargate, but that these 50 minerals just have nothing to do with the ability of Oracles that will make you being able to take a 3rd base and scout perfectly. Like, that's just way better than robo opening.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change anything, but just make Cannon Rush stronger.
Yeah, that's or the double proxy robo play against Terran, which is always really fun.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah, have fun with that one, guys. I don't know. I find that one to be a little bit weird and off. I don't think it was necessarily needed. We'll see if it really changes that much. I guess it makes it easier to make your 2 robos. It's not like I need the extra Zealot to defend those roaches, but okay. All right, Colossus. They added turret tracking, so it kind of turns its head like an Immortal or something while it's running away. They show a little video with it. It's just much more microable now. I think it's like very smart to do, considering Colossus is almost underused right now.
Yep.
Any other thoughts? Yeah.
As a Terran, I don't really like it too much. No, like I think if it actually works out against Zerg in some way, then that's great because I would love to see some more variation from Protoss and PvZ.
Mm-hmm.
As a Terran right now, if you're chasing Colossus with your bio and they're stutter stepping, it's a good exchange for the Protoss anyway. So I don't really know about this one.
Anything that makes Protoss think a little bit more is good, I think. If they're doing that, they're not going to be doing something else, That's my thoughts on it.
If they're thinking, they're not going to be doing something else. Nate 2018. All right. Yeah, I don't know if this is going to help us see it more in the other matchups, but I guess you're right, really. Like, a retreating Protoss is very hard to deal with between Force Field, Psystorm, and now Colossus doing this well. The Disruptor is going back to its pre-4.0 state. So the old Disruptor that we all know, where you actually it shoots through and detonates after a couple seconds, and it doesn't just hit the first thing. It's going back to that. I was always kind of confused why they switched it anyways, but then recently when we've seen people going mass disruptors, it's kind of been interesting to see some of the really top-end Terrans run units into it. I don't know, what do you like the new Disruptor or the new old Disruptor?
I think
like the Disruptor that we have right now where it detonates as soon as you hit the center, or is this older build a better version?
The older build is 10 times better, I think.
Yep.
Like the old Disruptor was honestly a cool unit. You could use it against Zerg, you could use it against Terran, and it was pretty good. Like you could micro against it, you could split around it. There was so much potential. And now in PvT, like it's actually kind of messed up. Like all you can do is run. Like you can't actually do anything. You just send 4 medevacs to counter, and all you do is run. And against Zerg, it's horrible. Like changing it to what it is now was actually pretty terrible. And this revert is actually 10 out of 10 change.
Yep.
Okay. Would you agree, Lambo and TLO?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Disruptor that we have right now is completely useless against Zerg. Like you don't even have to micro against it. The links will just trigger it. And it kind of seems dumb design-wise against Terran. So, and the old Disruptor wasn't too strong or anything. I think it's just a good change overall.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot more of Disruptors in CVP anyway. Almost more like a desperate. Usually they made Disruptors, I felt, as desperation when they, for some reason, couldn't get a Templar out or a Storm out. You made Disruptors to stay alive against some kind of all-in. So...
Yeah, I definitely remember that period where it was the desperation unit, but I just wonder because the ZVP meta has shifted a little bit where there's a lot of times, right, it's like Roaches into Roach Hydra into Lurker. And way back, this was actually really useful against Lurkers. When it was in this state in 2016 or whatever. So
but that was pre-Lurker speed upgrade, I guess, as well?
Yeah, Yeah,
which makes a big difference, but
okay,
it's okay. It's an okay change.
Okay. All right. The Tempest cost reduced from 300, 200 to 250, 175. So that's 50 minerals, 25 gas less. Supply reduced from 6 to 5. Hit points and shields reduced from 300 to 150. 300 shields, 150 hit points to 150 shields, 125 hit points. That's a gigantic nerf to the shields, at least. Speed increased from 2.632 to 3.5, so much, much faster. And acceleration increased from 1.5 to 2.8. And it's another one where the thing that they're showing us, I don't understand because it just shows Tempest randomly firing at 3 Terran flying units.
Oh, so
instead of watching them fly around like crazy on the map with the speed.
They are fast. They are really fast.
So what they were showing off in the video is the supply reduction from 6 to 5. There's one more Tempest in the video. It makes no sense.
Oh, that's what it is. Because I'm looking at like it's the big changes here, right? I'm like, are they trying to show that they have less health so they die quicker? Like what is this video showing me? I watched it like 5 times. But what I want to see is them like something coming after them and then they go, whoa, and they just like zip off the screen. And because, this speed difference is gigantic, right?
Yeah. They're as fast as a Medivac now without boost.
Wow. And the Excel, like what has that much acceleration 2.8?
Like a Void Ray, maybe?
Okay.
It's it's quite quick.
Yeah, you're on the PTR, Nate, playing with battle cruisers, so I guess you probably hit a lot of this new Tempest. What does it feel like?
Yeah, well, it's really weird. So I feel like they gave Tempest the Viking treatment, where I feel like I can kill them pretty effectively now if I have a decent support with my BCs to fight against them. But it's like the games that I've been getting into, I don't know. It's like it's hard to describe it, but they kind of feel like they're sort of everywhere. Like they get around the map really quickly. At least using like BC, like the teleport away is big, but killing them if you can get onto them is super easy. Like the Yamato now puts them at 35 health afterwards. But if you have anything there, like you can Yamato them and your support units can clean them up. But their damage is still the same. So if you can't get to them, they are still really, really hard to deal with. But apparently Roddy was doing it a bunch as well on his stream today. I didn't get to check it out, but yeah, Tempests they're very weird. I haven't been cheesed with them yet, so.
Okay. They recently, Tempests have completely rotated out of Protoss versus Zerg. There was a period there where there was a choice between going Tempest against Broodlords and going Carriers. It seems like that choice is gone. I haven't seen a pro make Tempest against Zerg in a really long time at this point. Could this change that at all? Are these going to be a little bit more useful against Zerg guys?
I think before Protoss made Tempest mainly if they saw the Broodlords too late to transition to Carriers or were a bit behind. So it's kind of a panic move because it was always that way that a maxed out Protoss army with Carriers is just way better than the maxed out Tempest army, especially ever since the Tempests were 6 supply instead of 4. And I think that will stay this way because the Tempests just have a lot less HP. So just in a maxed out fight, they're not that great. Still, also in comparison with the carrier and with the supply. But maybe there can be something like a ground and a couple of Tempest timing if you scout Broodlords right away, and you can just counterattack right away. But yeah, I think this is one of those changes where I need to play against it first to see how exactly it plays out.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel they will just die to Corruptors so quickly, right? That I'm not entirely sure if the speed increase is really gonna help them all too much. I like what they're trying to do because the Tempest was a pretty lame unit. Just beefy, slow, you couldn't really micro much other than just shift clicking Broodlords.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I feel like the speed increase will not make up for the extreme reduction in hit points. Maybe they just went a little bit too far with that.
Okay.
For Terran, I'm honestly not that sure because I think if you play bio and you get into a situation where you're just camping with Liberators, like they're gonna be really good because they'll be able to siege you faster. But at the same time, if you have a big concave with Vikings, they're probably gonna get home.
Yeah, they are so flimsy.
Yeah, and also for Terrans that play mech, if someone's going to try to make a Tempest against you, that's going to be kind of comical.
Yeah, and keep that in mind with the Thor change as well, doing its shots faster since it has the same ground to air range as the Tempest has versus ground.
Yeah, the Thor's going to be kind of horrible.
Yep, Thors are way better versus Tempest now.
So maybe a slight buff against Terran in a way, but a slight nerf against Zerg then? Is that kind of the consensus?
I don't think it's a buff against Terran.
No?
No.
Even though they can siege you more quickly? You think it's fine because the health is lower?
Yeah, it's very situational, Like if I play Lib range and I have literally 10 Liberators in bio, it's going to be really good. But if I have 6 Liberators and 6 Vikings, I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem.
Okay.
I actually don't think it's a straight up nerf against Zerg. I think they're just also a lot better to defend against the early Broodlord timings, which is a lot that the Zerg late game has. Just rush Hive and then get the Broodlords out right away because they cost a bit less, but they still do the exact same thing. Like if you don't have anything to counter them, they're still good. So in some situations, I think they're worse, and some they're better.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I didn't actually see the cost reduction. That is actually a good point.
Yeah. All right, so actually, it sounds like there's a lot of mixed opinions on the Tempest, which would make me think that this is a good change, because right now we barely ever see them, and now we're all kind of like, oh, well, maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
So
I do wonder if we can actually kite Vikings in with this patch, because that could actually.
I mean, they're pretty fast, right?
Yeah.
What's a
They
Viking?
are. Vikings are faster for sure. You can't. I don't think you can kite them crazy. It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be more like playing around with. I don't know how I would describe this, but like being able to poke with them is definitely a lot stronger if you have any sort of initiative. But if you get collapsed on, they die crazy fast. So it's like they're glass cannons for sure.
And an opinion I heard in the balance discussion we had in Montreal was that it's actually a strong buff, because even though the one supply less could basically mean, like, if you have 6 Templars, now you can have like a few High Templars more, and they can siege you much faster as well. So their army is going to be a little bit stronger, and they can siege you faster. So honestly, it's a bit of a toss-up. I just know they're going to be horrible against mech, which is nice.
I guess it just depends a lot on the map too. If it's a map with a lot of cliffs and high ground, the new Tempest is probably going to be a lot better if you can't get on top of them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like Dreamcatcher style.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, you guys have kind of made me excited about this change. Maybe the Tempest will find its real place within the Protoss army with this, especially considering there is a giant change to carriers coming in.
Yeah.
So here it is. Graviton Catapult Upgrade Remove. That's what launches interceptors really quickly. Hit points and shields increased from 250, 150 to 300, 150. So that's a 50 shield increase. Build time decreased from 86 to 64. Wow. Interceptor build time increased from 6 to 11 seconds. Interceptor damage changed from 2 shots of 5 to 8 of 1. So people watching that don't understand what that is. It's going to be better against armor, but less damage overall. Interceptors get a +1 x1, which means they get +1 damage on air attack upgrades now, instead of a +1 x2, which is basically, instead of 6 and 6, which it would have done before, now it'll do 9. So less damage. The interceptors come out slower. It's better against armor. Slightly more hit points. It makes a lot faster, but its interceptors move out slower. That is a lot to take in. The carrier seems like it's going to be a very different unit.
It sucks. It's play first carriers is so much easier. The damage reduction is pretty huge. Like the 8, like even if you're just like, if you battle cruise, like this is an example, if a BC has 6 armor, if you have +3, the carrier's at 11 damage. So you're only doing like 5 damage per hit still, which isn't crazy far off of the 8 -6, which would be like 4 with the old setup. I don't know. I'm doing math on stream, so it's going to be wrong. But the damage drop off is huge. I got to one of the devs that I talked to at Montreal about this. The burst damage that you got from Graviton Catapult right now makes the initial burst of each carrier like 200 damage, and then the follow-up shots are obviously faster because they're out faster. So it's a huge drop-off in the burst damage that the carrier has. They're a little bit tankier, but it's still 2 Yamatos to kill them, and they don't kill you as fast, so it's not as big of a deal anyway. And building faster is nice, but I feel like if you need some sort of tier 3 air, Tempests are probably going to be more of a go-to. Like, carriers are actually just so much worse. So much worse. Not worried about them at all. Any of the games I played, carriers were like absolute trash. But yeah, everything they've done to this is a nerf. Like the health buff is okay, but being able to build them faster the way that they are now, I don't think you're gonna see people like massing these bad boys anymore. Not like this.
I have to say real quick before the other guys chime in that I really appreciate how much you like capital ships and how much you know, and like I'm like, the Hydralisk went from 90 to 85 health. You're like, yep, that's still 1 Yamato. It's like, okay. It's still 2 Yamatos to kill a carrier. I'm like, okay, yep.
Well, it takes 3 to kill a BC, so that changed, right? I'm just
yeah.
I'm also a Neosteel enthusiast, so I've got you there too.
Yes, yes, indeed. You're the one they were talking about. Do you guys agree with the assessment of Nathanias, who actually has gotten to play against this new patch carrier? Does this look like crap when you read this patch?
Yeah, but fuck carrier, so that's great.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
I want to say I really like the way they did the build time decrease and then the interceptor build time increase. So the first carrier with the max interceptors is still there at the same time. But then after, I really felt like the interceptors reload too quick. So for example, I had a lot of fights when you were all-inning against carriers where your Hydras barely kill the interceptors, and before you can target fire down the carriers, they already have more interceptors, which kind of feels stupid. But besides that, I agree. I think they just need to look at the numbers again a bit, because without the graviton catapults and the nerf combined, I think it's just too much.
Yeah, I think maybe even 9 times 1 damage would be a lot better than 8.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, 8 is just not enough.
I think they build interceptors automatically now too. That's like they didn't put this in the patch notes, but someone told me this.
Wasn't this always the case for a long time now?
I don't know.
I think you just
I don't build carriers.
It's the thing that you can turn on and off, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I don't build carriers too often.
maybe it starts on. I'm not sure. I haven't used this new one, but
They take forever. So
I kind of tend to agree with you guys. Like, it looks like they're going to be kind of crappy, but almost good. I don't like. For me personally, I look at when there gets to be people start building carriers against Zerg, right? And I'm just looking at him like, yeah, no, the Protoss has 5 bases, and when he gets up to about 6 carriers, this game's basically over, you know. And it just there's like maybe a small period with carriers where they can be interesting, and then it just dies off really super quick. So I actually don't mind if this unit kind of gets nerfed a bit. But are we going to see them at all now?
probably not the way they are now. I think my hope is that they scale this back a little bit. Like getting rid of Graviton is a huge thing. The health buff and the build time is big, but like give it maybe 1 more damage or something, or don't increase the build time. Like they nerfed it in every possible aspect other than how fast it builds, and like 50 health doesn't really mean anything if you're not killing anything anyway.
The strange thing about a carrier is that it's an extremely strong late game unit that's an all-rounder. That's kind of the problem the carrier always had in StarCraft 2, I feel. Most late game units are not just good against everything. You know, Ultralists can be countered, but battlecruisers, you know, obviously have never been really great. But all of them always had counters. Same for like Thor, right? Thor is not just a unit that's good against everything, but carriers always were pretty much good against everything. So I'm not sure how you can even balance a late game unit that doesn't really have weaknesses. So I feel with the carrier, they kind of need to find a niche that it can be good in and something that's bad at. But there's always been this generalist, strong late game unit that can be easily microed. That basically has no micro. So I'm with you that, and I'm like kind of happy for it to just disappear. But it would be nice if they can find something for it.
Okay.
I think if the carrier is actually as bad as Nate says, mech is actually going to be good.
Yeah, mech.
Maybe other players will actually believe me and finally use some mech against Protoss.
Well, plus you can put mines everywhere now, and if they fly some shit over it, it's going to blow up, and they won't be able to kill it easily. So all of that helps mech a lot versus Protoss.
You know, that's I didn't want to bring it up for risk of looking like a scrub, but yeah, every time I play against mech, I just make carriers. So
Every time they play mech, you just die to carriers.
They counter mech really hard, but also like if without the carry, they don't look like a really strong counter to mech. So I feel like it could actually become a fair match. I see it a bit more, which for me is really cool because like I play mech already, but no one else plays it. Like I've seen them try it and I lose a few times and they don't anymore. It was really, really cool to see, I think.
Yeah. Mech has good counters and stuff with Immortals too. So I mean, I like the mech games versus Protoss without carriers can look really fun. But carriers was always the biggest thing because you're just because they just shit on everything. Yeah.
All right, so maybe a cool thing, definitely a big nerf to the late game Protoss, but we'll see if that matters when our robos cost 50 minerals less. The mothership has a little bit of a change. Time warp now also reduces the attack speed of enemy units and structures by 50%, in addition to slowing it by 50%. So now everything under a time warp is shooting slower. What do you guys think? Is this actually going to be utilized as a siege unit like Blinding Cloud was doing before, or?
I think the reason they did it is to break spore lines, and that's, I think, the only use I can see for it, because it also affects buildings. Because before it was this massive bubble where you shouldn't go into, and now it's this massive bubble where you really shouldn't go into. And you had a lot of time to dodge it anyways, so I think that's the only use I can see.
The only thing I'm a bit worried about is these non-carrier builds with a mothership where you just have a ton of Archons, Immortals, and Templar, that you get another big zone to zone out Zerg, because the time warp is huge, right? So you put it in between like their natural and their third, and Zerg can't really engage. They kill like a base or two and get out. So I like what they're doing, that they're like trying to give time warp basically a use again, because right now it's only used if you neural mothership and try to waste energy, and that's the only time time warp. But I feel it would be nice if it would affect Protoss units as well, because it doesn't, right? Right now Protoss units can just walk into the time warp and be unaffected. So I feel the way it is now, it should affect both sides, so you can at least Protoss can't just like sit halfway in it and still attack you.
I think
the change I recommended was that they could make the attack speed only affect buildings, because then it actually only fits the purpose of what they wanted to, and not just like a lot of the changes like this. I feel like they accidentally just make something broken. You know what I mean? Like, if you stand on a time where you're going to get owned, if you play on a small map and they put it there, I think it's very, very devastating. But if they actually make it only use against buildings, they could actually use it to kill like those boring spore walls or whatever.
Yeah. It almost seems like it's the new liberation zones, where the general rule is just going to be you cannot fight under this. But Protoss did lose some power in the late game with the carrier nerf, right? So this definitely gives them, at least 2 really strong attacks with a full energy mothership, I guess. But yeah, it seems a bit overkill doing the half damage to the units.
Yeah, I haven't been able to see that, because the mothership, also keep in mind, has the big recall. So at least in the games I've seen, people have been much more defensive with the motherships, because it's the that is the eject button for your army now when you get to late game.
Yeah. All right. Just 3 more quick little changes. I know, Lambo, it's late there, and you were only supposed to be here for 40 minutes, and this is going on way too long, but that is the Pylon show. I'm really sorry about that. Appreciate your time. But real quick, the shield battery, it heals through lifting with Phoenixes. That's probably a good thing. The Phoenixes it had some all-ins in PvP, and were free harassment even against shield battery lines. So, okay. I mean, does anyone have thoughts on that? I wouldn't think so. Right?
It's a good change. Just against all-ins. If you play against harassment, it's still going to kill your probes anyway. So that's not a big deal, but it's a bit better against the annoying Phoenix on it.
Biggest simulator nerf from 450 to 300. Finally, am I right?
I'm so excited for that. I've been telling Blizzard to do that for 5 years, every year.
From 4 Yamatos to 3, a miracle.
He's amazing, folks. All right, and gateway. All gateways are just going to auto turn into warp gates.
I wasn't a fan of this one.
No?
It's not huge, but I feel like it's an action you have to do as Protoss. It's not hard. If you really screw up, you can mess up. I don't know why you would make it any easier. I didn't like it too much.
Yeah, they do a few simplifying things that I'm always kind of about, like the siege mode on observers and stuff, so people can F2 and not lose observers, and then like gateways auto going, and I don't know. Every time I see that, I'm like, we're supposed to be the Herdis game. Just leave it. But whatever. I mean, I don't think it's really going to affect too much. Yeah. Well, this is definitely not a show about co-op. So overall, thumbs up, thumbs down for the Protoss patch?
Big thumbs up for the Protoss ones.
Okay. Yeah, everyone's thumbs up on that. Do we think that this was a nerf or a buff for Protoss?
Definitely a nerf.
Huge nerf.
Yes, huge nerf for Protoss. And the problem is that Protoss are winning so many tournaments too. So I'm really glad that we're getting this nerf with all the tournaments that they're winning.
Yep.
I have to say, when you guys were discussing the carry being nerfed, I was a bit worried about PVZ because I'm by no means an expert, but I do feel like if Protoss wouldn't have a strong carrier with the way the game is right now, I think it's it's already kind of difficult for you guys.
I think I like what they're trying to do. I think the idea is we want to make Protoss a bit stronger overall and make those carrier compositions weaker. But they probably still need to change a bit more to actually get there. Because if Zerg has stronger late game and can just sit behind Spore, Broodlord, and Fester, we're going to be back into that era again, right? And nobody wants that.
No. So overall thoughts, guys, on the quality of the patch. Are you really liking it overall? Is it too much in one direction? Just kind of final thoughts on this patch.
I'm really liking this patch, actually. I feel like I've said it a few times as well, but I think the general direction is good. Like for TVZ, I love that they're trying to go away from the Hydra, go towards Muta. I don't know if it was intentional to make Terran mech better against Protoss, but they are managing to do so, which is great. Going forward with the battle cruiser. When it comes to balance, I can't say anything because every time one of these patches come out, one race is actually just terrible, and it's but the direction they're going in is really good.
There's one thing they didn't list in there as well. Their charge is 50 gas and 50 minerals more.
Oh yeah.
Really?
I don't know if that's in it or not, but that's in there.
That's a product of the Zerg lining at Montreal.
Well, yeah, Protoss did real well there too. Kilo, your thoughts on the patch?
Wait, who did you ask?
You.
Oh, okay.
Kilo.
All right. I think it's fine as well. I think they are having a lot of good ideas in there. Nothing. I don't think it's a totally crazy patch. It's not like we see a ton of stuff which we don't understand at all. I think it could make the game a little bit more dynamic. Yeah. But I'm glad they're trying these things out. It's just really some numbers may have to be changed, but you're still pretty far off from this going live, I guess.
Yeah.
So we'll see what the PDR brings. I'm very excited to play that and see the first online cups coming up for that, so we can actually find out how things feel. Because it's always hard to tell how it actually is, right? Maybe the carrier is still fine, but probably not.
Yeah, probably not. But yeah, I agree with you. Like, I like the direction. I really like the ideas here, and I think it'll make the game more interesting to get rid of things like Protoss carrier deathball, but maybe some numbers need to be changed. Nathanias, what do you think?
I like the direction of it a lot. But when they've done like the big changes before, like some of the stuff just felt like they were just like throwing shit and just being like, well, what's gonna stick? Like just let them do all their abilities, like the fungal burrow and that stuff. But like people have been complaining about like the BC thing forever. Like everybody's talking, like the Widowmine thing was like something that people mention a lot. No one likes the Cyclone shit at the start of TVT. It's like all of those changes make a lot of sense to me. And then the other things are like, well, I don't, like whatever on like the Metavag thing. But, Ultralisks have always had like that thing where they're like really hard to use off creep. That makes a lot of sense. The High Templar thing is probably the strangest thing to me that's going to have a huge impact. I do like it. And then obviously like everyone complains about, Protoss carrier death balls. So getting rid of that, the direction of it's great. There's a bunch of like stuff here I'm not really sure about, and I'm sure they're going to scale a lot of it back. But I think it's a pretty good direction to go for. Like, don't lose the game when the Protoss gets 10 carriers, etc.
All right. And Lambo, your final thoughts on this patch before I let you go to bed.
Basically what Nate just said, honestly. I like the direction. I really love some changes. I think some are completely random. I love the High Templar one. I love the Disruptor one. I think those are purely positive. There's a bunch of just really nice changes. That's it.
Cool. All right. Well, Lambo, I know that you promised us 40 minutes, and so we've abused you, and you've been on here for a long time now, and I'm really sorry about that. But thank you so much for coming on. We will let you go to bed while we go over the rest of the things, and congratulations on BlizzCon, all that. Any things you want to say? You streaming anytime soon? Anywhere people can watch you?
Thank you very much. Well, I'm in Munich right now, so I don't have a PC that's good enough to stream, but I'm going to get a new one. So check out my stream. It's twitch.tv/LamboKing. And the next event I'm going to be at is the Clash Invitational offline finals, where I'm going to be casting. I didn't actually qualify for it, but that should be super fun too. So looking forward to that too.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Lambo. You get some rest.
Thank you for the invite.
Sorry
good night, guys.
Balance went on so long. But, that was always going to be the long part of the show, I guess. All
right.
All right. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Right.
Okay. Well, now.
One thing about the balance thing is that
Sure.
I feel like the gas change is actually like a really stealth Protoss cheeser nerf as well.
Yep.
You know how you said the robo change was a bit of a ass buff? I think the gas is a bit of a ass nerf at the same time.
Oh, because he steals gases.
Yeah. Like, if you play against Structure Rebels Terran and he doesn't steal your gas, it's not that great, to be honest. But.
Yeah. It's, well, as soon as I saw that, I thought about StarCraft 1, because it's like, that actually happens a lot, because there's one geyser. But, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just because they want TLO to shut up about the assimilators. They're like, all right, just put it in. It's a big patch. If someone put it in. You're staying late tonight.
Assimilator enthusiasts,
Yeah. Assimilator enthusiasts. All right. Yeah.
Critic.
I think from here, thank you guys for talking about that. We'll move on and talk about Montreal a little bit. We'll try to go reasonably quickly, considering we took so long on that balance discussion. But WCS Montreal, y'all were just there. Was a pretty awesome tournament, I thought. I really had a lot of fun with what I got to see. Again, Protoss did really well. Showtime did take a map off Lambo. But what do you guys think about the tournament? Have any impressions? Just kind of riff for a minute here.
I think the tournament itself, like from a viewer perspective, I think it was really awesome. But I personally had a bit of a feeling that the skill was a bit lower than the previous events. Like, I don't know if a lot of people choked, but we had so many upsets. We had like Shadow got first in his group, Semper got first in his group. Like, we had some really weird matchups in the bracket stage. And even throughout the tournament, I felt like, from my point of view, everyone was a little bit disappointing, except for people like Time, of course. Mm-hmm. The race distribution was quite good, I think. There was we liked a few Protoss in top 8. Was it 1 or 2? Maybe just one.
Top 8? Oh,
yeah.
We had 1. Showtime.
Yeah. But we had 3 Terrans, I believe, for the first time ever in the top 8. So, it was a Zerg dominated, but, it happens. But I think from how do you say, the race distribution perspective, viewer perspective, and entertainment, we had really good games. But from a skill perspective, I feel like it was a little bit disappointing.
Huh. Would you guys agree with that? That everyone was kind of playing poorly? Is there any chance maybe that the players that made the upsets have been, I look at some of these names like you mentioned, Shadow, and like I've seen his name popping up for years now, just below anywhere where we talk about it. But here he is with a good result. What do you guys think?
It's always hard to tell if you don't have all the data, right? Because unlike less likely events will just sooner or later happen, right? So if you have a bunch of players that usually didn't make groups but have a 40%, 30% win rate, eventually you're going to have a tournament where they make it, right? And sometimes you're just going to have a couple of those events happening simultaneously. Mm-hmm. I do feel like in general, the tournaments that happen in North America, the skill level is maybe a little bit lower, just also because the Europeans are traveling and they're jet lagged, and the majority of the best players are the Europeans. Mm-hmm. So I did feel like Valencia people played better. It's much easier when you just travel a couple of hours, like the day before you were still practicing, instead of like a 15-hour flight or whatever. But also we had a lot of CVC. And I feel CVC, the style has evolved a little bit after the maps changed. Everything has become a little bit more cheesy lately, I feel. A lot of crazy builds happening, so maybe that's also contributing to that a little bit. And in general, like, maybe the current map pool is a bit less stable than the previous one. That could also be a factor in that.
Nathanias, as someone who watched all the games from the desk, did you perceive a difference in the way people were playing? Did people seem jet lagged, or were the games?
Well, I mean, some of the stuff was like Neeb's like flight situation. I don't know how many other players had similar problems, but like he got held up and had to like, I think he got there. He was one of those things, like he flew straight from Korea or whatever after his GSL thing, got in like a delay, and he played a lot worse. And like, but I'm not going to be the person to say that like anyone's playing less skill. I can't tell that well between it unless someone has like obvious, like, well, this person like came in really late. Yeah, he made some mistakes. He like lost to Semper in his group stage, but as far as everybody else goes, I don't know. I really enjoyed Montreal. To me, as like a viewer, just like a fan of StarCraft, seeing different people in there was cool. As a Terran, having multiple Terrans make it that deep in the tournament, which never happens, was cool. And yeah, I honestly like Austin, or was it Austin or Valencia, was like literally all 2-0, 3-0 on our broadcast for like the entire time. I'm so glad we didn't get that, even if some of these series were more floppy than others. Yeah, there was. I guess there was some weird stuff. I guess we pointed out a lot in the finals. Like Cyril let a lot of hatches get killed instead of canceling them, even though he still won anyway. So I don't really know if that means he was worse or whatever. But
yeah, I feel like just so many people that are like around the top 10 actually lost. Like, I feel like between the people that were like 8 and 15th, like only 2 made it or something. You know, Haas didn't make it very deep. Nurture was always consistent, but he went 0-4 in group stages as well. I don't know. I felt like it was such a weird tournament.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of weird seeing like Special not make it in the bracket stage, but then I look at his group, I'm like, oh, okay, that's why. But looking at the bracket overall, and there's actually kind of I have an interesting question about, because I see kind of a comparison between Raynor and you, Thermal.
Okay.
So with Raynor, right, he wasn't allowed to play all the WCS events this year. Yeah. And it looks really clear at this point in hindsight that if he were able to play all of them, he would be going to BlizzCon, right?
Yeah.
So
Dad? Dad?
All right.
It's our show now.
Yeah.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pylon Show. Thermal, what did you have for breakfast today?
I don't think I had breakfast. I was traveling.
Damn. Well, that's all I got. Bye, Dad.
Oh, hello? Hey. Oh, okay. Okay. Here we are. I don't know what the hell just had my internet shut off for a minute. Anyways, okay, I don't know what was heard, so let me just reiterate it real quick, right? Raynor didn't get to play all the WCS events. You know, he was a little bit too young. It seems obvious in hindsight that if he had, he would be making it to BlizzCon. His skill has gotten just to a ridiculous level. At the same time, did you finish 9th in the standings, Thermal?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you were like just points away from making it to BlizzCon here.
Yeah.
But I remember clearly you got really sick at Austin, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like as soon as a top player gets unlucky in a small way for one event, it's like, you know, if you had pneumonia and then like Raynor was unable to play one because of age.
Yeah.
Someone asked an interesting question last week, or maybe it was the week before, about this, where it's like, should there be more, you know, like fail safes or something that would help this? I wonder if you what you think about this in general. These kind of weird close calls.
It's kind of what you can expect when you have a system like this, because everyone qualifies on points. For example, just to make a small comparison to the international, they have the point system, but they also have like a few qualifier spots, like one for Europe or whatever. And that is kind of a fail-safe. Like right now, everything hinges on points, and I think that's what you can kind of expect. So For me, I'm always a person who likes to go to events a lot, so I really like the 2016 system just because I had so many things to play.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, I mean, all I can say is I would like more events for, you know, money and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, of course, it does feel a bit weird because just to say, in Austin, I was playing with a pneumonia and I lost like 2-1 in a decider match in the group stage. And if I won that series, I would have been at list. You know what I mean? It's, I don't know, it happens. And there's few events and it's mostly about consistency. Of course, you have Cyril that steals all the points and some will get second a lot. But generally, if you have a line of just getting top 8s, you'll make it. And I was on that line. I made a top 16, a top 2 8s, but then, you know, my sickness at Austin may have costed me a lot, which is sad. But in the same time, I had a good chance to make top 4 at both last events, and I didn't. So I can't really blame, you know, getting sick for not making it in the end, I guess.
What's a big topic in the European scene is how for Europeans is relatively rough when it comes to Challenger. If you look at the ranking in the top 16, that's a lot of Europeans. Mm-hmm. And then you have Special and Haas, who both have a ton of points just from Challenger, which is a little bit of a failsafe for them because there's not so many players in those regions. But in Europe, Challenger is sometimes just as hard as a tournament. And even somebody like Showtime, like he has a total of 120 Challenger points, you know, and he's second. So maybe something like Challenger could be extended, that the top players have a few more opportunities to gain points. Mm-hmm. Especially in Europe, I feel like something needs to be done because the density of players for one region is just so high compared to Australia or, you know, Taiwan or South America.
Actually, I did the math on the amount of points people got from Challenger and from WCS events, and it was quite cool to see. For example, I don't know if you guys have the WCS ranking in front of you, but Special was third with 3,150 points. And Lambo scraped in the last place with 2,295. And across the WCS events, Special only made 175 more points than Lambo. And when it comes to Challenger, he made about 650 more points than him. And if you look at, if you would rank the people by who would get in based on just WCS majors, only Haas would be out, actually. Haas is the only one that boosted into BlizzCon by Challenger at the set. And the 8th place, funnily enough, would be Rainer. He was the top 8 in actually WCS majors. But you can see a pretty clear difference. For example, Special and Neeb, like I just said, Special, they would be near the bottom of the list if it wasn't for Challenger, basically. And I know NA is the second hardest region besides Europe in Challenger, but it still shows a pretty clear difference between Europe and the rest. That a lot of the Europeans actually don't have many points from Challenger at all, but the leading ones from the other regions have so many. Like we're talking 600, 700, 800. That's a top 8 right there. They literally have more than a top 8 in Challenger point, which is a bit insane, I think.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. So, I mean, not exactly what we're going in, but really interesting. So is this what the European scene is kind of lobbying for right now, to gain more points from Challenger or perhaps reduce points in other regions, just kind of try to find an equilibrium there? Or
I don't think you can give us more than others, but it could, for example, help to just give Challenger less points for every region. Like if imagine I get in total 200 points from Challenger and Haas gets 370 or whatever, it's not that big of a deal, right? But right now I got like 300 something and he gets like 800. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. And it does feel kind of unfair to us Europeans.
Yeah, we're not entirely sure what needs to be done, but it does feel tricky. Like overall, if you look at most of the Europeans, the WCS points are pretty spread, other than Cyril. But Cyril, to be fair, he won everything, so like he's kind of out of the equation. But it's not like somebody else won every second place, right? If it didn't really everybody, the Challenger points really spread out all over the players, which shows it's a region with a lot of players that have relatively similar skill, and then you have a few regions where you just have a best player. who gets all the points.
Yeah. That's the main problem for the other regions, I think. That, for example, Copa America, if me or Dario would go there, we're by no means guaranteed to win it because they have 3 really strong players in Special, Kelleher, and Cham. Of course, Special a bit above the rest. But besides that, they have no competition, really. So they will always get the points from that region. And in Europe, it's just really spread. Like, I think there's not more than 3 people that made more than 300 points of all the challengers in Europe this year. Well, a lot of the, for example, Kelleher, I'm pretty sure he got second every single time. That's also 600 points. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Really interesting on that. What were you saying, Nate?
I agree. I mean, it's like conversations that we have with like Blizzard about stuff like this, like changing the format of WCS. Like, I think a lot of people have talked about wanting things to be moved around in some way, and it hasn't really happened in a significant manner. But this is like a huge symptom of that problem of like where the skill variance is between regions. And I also agree. It's kind of weird to tell that story where you're like, well, these players just have a ton more points because they're from a really small area that's weighted evenly, despite the fact that there's only 1 or 2 WCS caliber players. And I hope you guys continue to talk. I hope like this gets brought up more and more because it is a little bit like, not to discredit a player like Special or Kelleher, but when you are just so much far above everyone else and you just have that inherent advantage over everyone else going into the circuit, you don't need to perform as well as other players in the tournaments that really matter. Then it does feel very weird. And I'm not sure what a good solution to that is, because obviously you can't make everyone play in one big thing, because then, you know, you get issues like lag or whatever and all that other stuff, and budgeting to bring people together. Like for that reason, I really like you know, some of the old Challenger stuff where you could have, you know, the old Premier League for that, when you brought like the regions together in a way. But I don't know that there's any easy solution to that problem at all.
And actually, it's even more than just the points we're seeing from Challenger, right? Because those people also qualify automatically in the round of 32. Yeah. So those regions even have a bigger advantage when it comes to that. That's another 100 points, even just from that. But also, like, you're more likely to go deeper in the tournament if you have no chance to be knocked out in, let's say, group stage 2, which does happen sometimes to even relatively good players.
Yeah. So what Artosis said earlier is that if you miss one event or something like that, it's actually very meaningful because there's not that many. And these players basically don't have a chance to mess up, basically. It happens a lot to really good players that they actually do lose in group stage 2. Notable eliminations are like Showtime in group 2. The one-time Special didn't qualify. He actually lost in group stage 2. And that actually matters a lot. And just as Dario said, it's a pretty big problem also. So a solution will basically have to be either with the seeds, like change the format that you don't get such a power seed, as Snip likes to call it. Or, you know, remove the points from Challenger or something. But something probably needs to be done to make it a bit more fair.
If I could just play devil's advocate for a moment here, because I don't necessarily disagree with you guys, but this kind of reminds me of the region locking debate just in general, right? Because it's like, well, the European scene has stronger players, so we should send the points should be reduced in other regions, so we send more to BlizzCon. Well, you know, definitely at this point, the European scene is right up there and competes with Koreans pretty regularly at this point. But you know, the region lock is part of why this occurred, and you know, just the Koreans could have an argument like this as well, right? Where they should have maybe more BlizzCon spots overall or something like that. So I just wonder, because it kind of feels like Europe is to Korea, like NA is to Europe, like Latin America is to like that. So what do you guys have to say about that?
Well, you know, it's just hard to make a perfect system, right? I think it is still also kind of cool that we have players from all over the world going to BlizzCon. So maybe that's just something we have to kind of tank. But, you know, yeah, totally be on the same boat as the Koreans when it comes to that. And, you know, I don't have like a moral argument. You know, it's just something that is a topic, but it doesn't necessarily mean things really have to change, but it's how people feel about it at the moment. And
to bring us all back to reality, players from those regions did make very deep runs I think everyone that qualified from these smaller regions actually had deep runs in WCS tournaments.
Oh yeah.
Hess did make it to the grand final of a WCS game. Like he did. It's not like he only qualified off the points of Challenger, but it's just.
And he should have top 4 here. Things went wrong, but you know.
So one thing I do have to say is that a lot of people are in the boat of like take a spot from Australia and give it to Europe, whatever. But I think that's all crap. Like I want those regions to compete because it's, you know, they should be able to. But I think by a solution like something what I said, like changing something about the seed or lowering the points, they can actually qualify and compete, but they don't get like an unfair advantage for BlizzCon. That's where I'm getting at mostly.
Yeah.
What if there was like more? What if there was like even if it was just like the prize money or something was distributed a bit more to Europe for like Challenger because it's more competitive? I don't know, something like that. That's not crazy, but
well, I don't think it would be great to take away the money from the smaller regions. I don't think that's something.
I just in an ideal world where the war chest sold like 1 billion copies.
Yeah, exactly. Just like put more money on Europe, but don't blow it for the rest of it.
Yeah. Scaling
and maybe 2 more slots for travel for Europe.
Okay. Actually, really interesting thing you guys brought up. I really like the math that you did, Uthermal, to kind of point out how these points made a difference and who made it and who didn't because of that, and their seeding and everything. But jumping back to the actual Montreal tournament, what about that Raynor kid? He's pretty good.
He's a good unit.
Yeah, I think you kind of. I mean, obviously you had a very close series there with him, Uthermal, losing 2-3. But I don't know. I'm looking at it, and I've never seen a non-Korean rise like this quickly. And I know that you guys were talking about Raynor a little bit before he jumped on the WCS scene, that there's this really good young kid out in Europe. But do you guys think that he is preparing to dominate last year like Cyril did this year and Neve did last year?
I don't think so.
No?
Yeah, me neither.
I think
because that's the talk amongst the casters.
Yeah. From playing against him, I feel like there's still a lot missing from his gameplay. To be fair, like for example, Cyril, just to take an extreme example, obviously, like we've known him for like 6 years or something, and he was always like kind of crafting his own style and making it perfect. You know what I mean? And I feel like Raynor, it's not really like that. Raynor just kind of, goes with the flow. He still has a lot of flaws in his play, and like I feel like, with a player like Cyril, you kind of felt like after he won live, like he's probably gonna win again or he's gonna get really far. But with Raynor, I still have my doubts. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he loses in the quarterfinal next time or round of 16, something like that. I'm still not sure. I think he's really good and he could dominate, but it'll probably take a bit longer.
Okay.
Yeah, he's more the player right now that has really high, highs, but then also could lose like 40 links to a baneling, and that's something you don't see from Cyril. Just from one tournament, you can't, expect him to have the same consistency as a player that has dominated in the entire year of WCS. But Raynor is a super nice kid, and I'm really happy for him doing this well. So it's going to be exciting to see what he does next year. And it's always interesting with players like that. Obviously, he's still in school now, and he's really young, so he doesn't have any responsibilities or like little responsibilities. I think that's always an advantage as a tournament player. Where the older players, they have a lot of things in their head that can like stress you out, other things you need to take care of, and he stresses young player that can play carelessly, and that probably has helped him a lot in the tournament. He's playing WCS as somebody from high school. He doesn't have anything to prove. He doesn't have anything to lose, right? You can only go, rise up from here.
Yeah. Makes sense. So obviously, Cyril, we got to just mention real quick 4 WCS championships in a row, all of them this year. What was it? Top 4 at Katowice and winning GSL versus the world. Now, before you just scream out yes, you European badasses, think about Neve first, but is Cyril undisputedly the greatest foreigner of all time?
I can't say yes, but yes.
You can say yes. Just I wanted you to take a moment because you got to think back. Kespa Cup, GSL Run of 4, 3 WCSs last year.
I'm a big Neeb fan, but it's undeniable that what Sarah did this year is absolutely legendary, and it's more than what other foreigners have done. So he's undisputedly the best foreigner ever, I would say. And for me, Neeb is second. I guess for most people that is obvious.
Yeah.
But I do feel like Neeb has missed a bit of that dominance edge that Cero has. Like, to be honest, like Cero got really close to losing a lot of times this tournament, and that's Montreal was the most vulnerable we've seen it. But overall, it was always like, oh, okay, he's gonna take a map that's cute now. Get out of this game. And so Cero is unmatched in that regard.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. Even though Neeb had those 3 victories, and WCS, he always felt a little bit more beatable, almost like he kind of, got by, but somebody could have knocked him out at any point. But with Cero, other than at this event with Mass CVC, it didn't really feel like anybody even got close to beating him. And you could always see this development in the series where he would lose a map and then he would just, make his play even more tight. And then it seemed even more impossible to beat him. So, I guess we'll see how BlizzCon goes, but I'd be surprised if he doesn't at least make top 4. It would be so